Well, we've had about almost a week since the Switch 2 was fully revealed, announced. A lot of details since the Nintendo Treehouse events have come out. A lot of questions answered. And there's a lot of feelings in the Switch 2 realm. But that's not all we're going to talk about on today's game news. But it's mostly what we're going to talk about. From pre-order cancellations to system performance, But we've got some other news to jump into first. So let's start there with Activision being aware that bizarre skins are making Call of Duty look stupid, it's claimed. This is from Insider Gaming. Grant Taylor Hill brings us this article. Activision has been hell-bent on jamming as many crossovers into the Call of Duty universe as possible these days. We've seen some bizarre topics surface, leading to an inane in-game events and laughable skins that have players craving something a little more grounded. In a recent claim from a prolific Call of Duty insider, it was suggested that Activision is acutely aware of the feedback from the wider community suggesting that Call of Duty is becoming a laughingstock because of these weird skins and irrelevant crossovers. They go on to write, self-awareness is key. In a post on social media, the Ghost of Hope gave feedback on about the performance of Warzone and how Verdansk has boosted the game's player count on all platforms. He then turned to talk about the future of Warzone, suggesting that Activision's teams are proposing taking a more restrained approach to skins and bundles in the game. They're talking about showing more restraint with Warzone. For skins, bundles, microtransactions, crossovers are printing money, but they hear the criticism the game is starting to look stupid. Gone are the days when people ran around Call of Duty dressed exclusively in milsim outfits. The rise of the free-to-play Battle Royale platform meant that microtransactions had to be ramped up, thus leaving us with countless crossovers and collaborations with musicians, television shows, movies, and other games. They might be printing money, but perhaps diehard Call of Duty fans are growing tired of the neon-lit, over-the-top, impossible outfits in the game. And then they ask a question, call to action there. But yeah, I just find it funny. Hey, self-awareness here. If we're playing a realistic-looking shooter, and I'm fighting Ninja Turtles alongside some army dudes, I mean, what's going on? The screenshot alone looks ridiculous because in Fortnite, it's fine. It fits. Fortnite is a multiversal, everything can be there kind of game, and Call of Duty is not that. Call of Duty is realism and guns and stuff like that. I think they should be doing collabs with other shooters. Would make sense. Bringing in Ninja Turtles is odd though. I'm not gonna say. They also did Gundam. All right, to be fair, and that's weird. You see a full-on Gundam, but person-sized running around the map. It's weird. It's a weird collab. So yeah. Anyway, let's not spend too much time on this. But moving on. All right, Summer Games Fest is back. This summer. We knew that was coming, but Friday is the live stream. June 6th. Not this Friday. June 6th. Friday. 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central. This is perfect. It's right at our Friday stream time. So June 6th, we will be doing, hopefully, a live reaction stream, should nothing else be pressing that particular weekend. But I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to the announcements. We'll see what's coming. But Summer Game Fest is back, y'all. RIP E3. All right. Okay, Matthew Griffin, the marketing publishing guy for Hollow Knight Studio Team Cherry, Hollow Knight Silksong. Just to clarify, because apparently people were confused about this, and you guys probably can't see it. Let's zoom in. Hollow Knight Silksong is coming to both Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. So people thought this might have been a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive, but it is not. It is also coming to Xbox and PlayStation, and I assume PC. I don't really know. Probably. Why wouldn't it? But hey, at least it's not a Switch 2 exclusive. It will be running on the OG Switch. Probably have like HDR and high frame rate, high resolution support on the Switch 2. I gotta say, Hollow Knight on Xbox Series X HDR, it looks really good. So I'm looking forward to more of that. I need to finish Hollow Knight. Anybody else not finish Hollow Knight? Because I need to. Anyway, let's move on to our next thing. Speaking of Hollow Knight, new screenshots dropped on the Nintendo Japanese website which is cool. This was coming from Nintendo Life. What big shout out to Nintendo Life this week. Most of my articles that we're covering are from Nintendo Life, so that's cool. But they go on to write, this is Jim Norman writes, it's all kicking off in the world of Hollow Knight Silksong, isn't it? After scoring a 2025 release window in last week's Direct and clarification launch alongside Switch 2 and Switch 1, you think we've heard enough official news from Team Cherry, but no, there's a fresh batch of screenshots out there. It comes from Twitter user, I noted on Twitter by Hollow Knight YouTuber game dev Mossbag69, the Japanese Nintendo website has been treated to a handful of new screenshots showing Hornet in action. So here's the screenshots. Let's look at them. They're very pretty. The game retains just such a unique look and feel, and I'm very excited for this next entry in the series. Look at that, how lush that looks. I don't know, something about the game. The art style just gets me, and I appreciate it. And good lord, I need to finish Hollow Knight 1 OG. Anyway, it's cool. I like all the Silksong news because it's like, hey, it's actually happening. It's actually happening this year. We're not gonna get the Silksong rumors before every Direct and Xbox announcement and PlayStation State of Play. We're just gonna get other memes. Anyway, let's move on. Maybe not. We're stuck in the screen player. All right, let's talk about the Switch delaying pre-orders in Canada. The Switch 2 pre-orders being delayed. Nintendo has confirmed, this is from Mobile Syrup, who is a Canadian gaming website, I assume. Bradley Shankar, hope I said your name right. Nintendo's confirmed the pre-orders for the Switch 2 have been delayed in Canada past their originally scheduled April 9th start date. And then goes on to repeat. Switch 2 pre-orders in Canada will not start on April 9th, 2025 in order to align with the timing of pre-orders to be determined in the US, Nintendo of Canada said in a statement to Mobile Syrup. Nintendo will provide updated information at a later date. The launch date of June 5th, 2025 is unchanged. Last week, they delayed pre-orders in the US to assess the potential impact of tariffs on evolving market conditions. However, the company confirmed that pre-orders were still set to open in Canada on April 9th. Now we know what's changed. And yeah, I just think the whole tariff situation is upsetting a lot of things globally. It is what it is. This isn't the place that I'm going to talk about all that. I think if Nintendo can eat the cost, they will. If they find that they can't, they won't. The Switch 2 will be more expensive in the North American region, Canada, US, and Mexico all included. And that's just going to be it. We're just going to have to deal with that. Things are already more expensive in Canada. Always have been in my lifetime. I don't know. I'm not from Canada. I don't know. I'm a US citizen. Hopefully, we can get our hands on the hardware on the release date and not pay an arm and a leg for it. But that remains to be seen. But yeah, bummer, right? Bummer. Welcome to life in North America. Uncertain times, I guess. I don't know. No opinions. All right, moving on. No opinions on that situation. Switch to Pirhana plant camera can't capture your beauty as well as the standard camera. Over on GameSpot from Evan Campbell. While it's cuter than the official Nintendo accessory, the Pirhana plant camera for Switch 2 won't offer the same image quality. The peripheral from Hori will only offer 480p resolution, according to Nintendo UK's website. That's not even true HD. That's barely definition, much less high definition. Meanwhile, VGC points out that the Switch 2 camera boasts the capability for 1080p resolution on Nintendo's UK website. Nintendo UK's website? Whatever. That could be one major reason for the cost difference, at least in the UK market. Hori's Pirhana plant camera is retailing for £34, while the Nintendo camera will cost £50. Both will be available at launch for June 5th. On June 5th for Switch 2. So is there not a picture of the camera? No. We gotta get a picture. I thought the camera was there. The Pirhana plant camera for Switch 2 does have some other things going for it. However, for instance, instead of looking like a run-of-the-mill peripheral, the accessory resembles its Super Mario Bros. Enemy namesake. Additionally, it can fit inside the warp pipe or not, as well as close the mouth over the camera to block when not in use. We've got to find the pictures. Can we get there? Alright, I'm sorry. We're not prepared for this. Here we are. The Pirhana plant camera. I think this is a funny looking device. Right? Like, is this a webcam? But it looks like a Pirhana plant. Apparently the mouth can close. It can be stored down in the pipe, according to, or tucked away. I didn't really understand that whole thing. They don't really show you. But camera resolution 640 by 480. So there you go. Keep in mind, this thing is only necessary if you have a Switch membership and plan on using game chat. I don't think I will. I have my Switch Online membership. I just don't think I'm using game chat much at all, just to be completely honest. Anyway, I think it's a cool looking accessory. I think for the cost reduction, offering a 480p camera, like nobody's gonna be able to see what you're doing already. We know what this thing looks like, and I think we have an article coming up talking about that. But let's move on. Here we go. Yes, speaking of webcams, Nintendo explains why Switch 2 game chat screen sharing has a low frame rate. They've given us a reason. This is from VGC. Thanks to Chris Schoolion for writing the article. Nintendo's explained why the screen sharing feature in Switch 2 game chat runs at a low frame rate. Players using the game chat feature have the ability to turn on a screen sharing feature, which shares what's on their screen with other players. This allows everyone to see what other players are up to during a multiplayer game, or to give players advice if they're stuck at a certain point. Players can also share their screen if they're playing a different game, meaning one player could be playing Mario Kart World while their friend is sharing their Donkey Kong Bonanza gameplay underneath. However, players have noted that the game chat footage shown during Nintendo Switch 2 Direct appeared to show other players' footage running at what appears to be 10 frames per second, as opposed to 30, 60, or even 120 FPS supported by Switch 2 games. In an interview with GameSpot, Switch 2 hardware director Takahiro Dota explains that the reason game chat screen sharing runs at a low resolution is to ensure it doesn't take up too much of the console's resources, which could affect gameplay. Obviously, chat is meant to run and work simultaneously and coincide with the game you're playing, Dota explained, but we also think it's critical that it doesn't get in the way of the game that's running right now. And so we want to definitely make sure that what we do was to make sure that running game chat alongside the game doesn't result in the game experience or quality being reduced at all in any way. I'm sorry, I just meandered on through that sentence very clumsily. Technical director Tetsuya Sasaki added that the reduced frame was to ensure everyone has the same experience, as well as ensuring enough power is left over for the games themselves. He's quoted, as Nintendo, one thing we really put emphasis on is making sure that everyone experiences a very even experience when it comes to the quality of the service that they're experiencing. Brother, word salad. You say experience some more. He explained, and based on this emphasis that we prioritize, obviously if somebody's in a better environment, they're going to get better results in terms of their experience. But we really wanted to make sure that more than anything, people had an equal or even playing field, or even experience rather. And I think that was our priority as an entertainment company. And the other aspect of this is that we want to make sure that there is enough power reserved for the games themselves, so we have a smaller area to play around in within to make sure that all these varying aspects fit into things like network environment connectivity. And so we landed on within this margin that we have to work within. Oh my gosh, this sentence is, I'm so lost. Okay, anyway, basically they're conserving resources to prioritize your game experience, and they don't want to have you play like at a stupid, boring, low frame rate and ruin your game time if you're just trying to chat with people. I think at that point, you just get a capture card and play through Discord and get, the best of both worlds. Anywho, cool. Well, at least we got an explanation on that, and it wasn't just, hey, it sucks because it sucks. So there's a technical reason now. All right, let's move on. That's the same article, but from Nintendo Life, which we talked about already. So we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, this is a question I saw coming up. I'm still not sure why. I kind of talked about this in a video I posted last week. Just a lot of questions that weren't answered during the Direct. But here we got an article that explains in detail, Switch 2 game key cards aren't tied to Nintendo accounts. Thanks Nintendo Life and Liam Doolin for writing this article. Nintendo's launching a new physical game option for the Switch 2 that don't contain the full game data and are instead used as a key to download the game onto your system via the internet. While these game key cards haven't exactly been received favorably so far, They will be different to the previous code in box offering during the Switch generation. GameSpot has got some clarification. According to Nintendo's Tetsuya Sasaki, key cards will play on any Switch 2 system and are not tied to an account. He's quoted as saying, so key cards will start up on the console or system that it's slotted into, so it is not tied to an account or anything. So if what's mentioned here is accurate, it effectively means you could lend these key cards to family members and friends. It's still not a proper physical release, but some may see this new option in a more positive light. It might mean you could also basically resell these key cards. Of course, Nintendo will likely one day take the Switch 2 servers offline, which potentially means game over for download cartridges, which is like the biggest concern with that. As mentioned by the same source, Nintendo's customer support page also notes how these game key cards will need to remain inserted in the Switch 2 even after the game is downloaded and installed, and internet check will also be a first-time requirement. All right, so this is kind of my point with this. The key card thing kind of formalizes something that cropped up midway through the Switch's lifespan, specifically when like 2K, NBA, and WWE started coming out. They're not all on the cart. Now, those games run at Switch specs, right? But the full game isn't on the cart. You have to have the cart if you buy the physical one, but there's also like the rest of the game has to download. I believe the Crash Bandicoot trilogy does the same thing, and Spyro, if I'm not mistaken. Now, that has a big ugly banner across it that's like, hey, you got to download more stuff to get the full experience here. I think this approach formalizes it, and while there's zero data on this card, it's still the same idea. You put the Switch card in and download the game. You wait on the download just like you would most modern games these days. And then when you're done with it, take it out and then put it in a different Switch or a case, go resell it, let a friend borrow it. I on one hand, hey, that's kind of what we were seeing Xbox kind of promote way back in the Xbox One days. When they were talking about game sharing and digital keys and how you could resell the keys. I think we kind of went that way anyway. Half the discs you buy lately, if you buy a physical copy on a PlayStation or an Xbox, it's just a Blu-ray disc. It's just a disc, and it has a key that lets you play the game, and that's it. You still have to download the full game. You're not getting. Very few games are launching with physical versions where the data's on the Blu-ray. That's just a fact. And when those games get taken offline, you can't install the game anymore. And that's the problem with the key cards that we just read here in this article. I think this is a good stopgap between it's like a good bridge between the physical and digital divide, where you're still getting the digital game and you have to have the cartridge, but at least you can resell this key. It's not just one-time use. You register it to your account and then the key card is useless for anybody else. And I think that's a good trade-off. It's not as desolate as buying a physical game that only works once, which was a thing that had been researched even on discs a long time ago. Thankfully, it never came to fruition. Here we are, digital's taking over. Everything's going full digital. Not a big fan of it. Nobody really wants it to happen, but it's going that way whether we want it to or not. So I think this is a good compromise. You get kind of the best of both worlds. Obviously, the download still sucks. Having to deal with, in 10, 15, maybe even 20 years, Switch 2 servers go offline. The store is no longer accessible. At some point, that's something we're going to have to deal with. Maybe we'll have something figured out by then. I don't know. I can't speak to that. But I can say this isn't that big a deal, but just be aware of what you're buying. Read the box. Be knowledgeable. If you don't want it that way, don't buy it that way. But I think the key cards are going to be a good thing for the time being. All right, let's move on. Here we go. Upgrade pack pricing has been revealed and confirmed for the Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 upgrade packs. And this is great. It's from Nintendo Live. Ollie Reynolds published this yesterday at the time of recording anyway. I don't know why the date matters. Anyway, a new interview between IGN and Nintendo's Bill Trinen has revealed the price of the upgrade packs for Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. As a reminder, the upgrade packs will essentially add in all the Nintendo Switch 2 edition benefits like improved frame rates and resolution alongside the new Zelda Notes smartphone mechanic. For those of you who already own the games on Switch, the upgrade packs will be $10 or $9.99 to be exact. So you're looking at $20 if you want to upgrade both. Pricing in the UK and Europe has yet to be confirmed, though we can likely expect something comparable to the US pricing. It's honestly quite a bit lower than we were expecting, and you should also keep in mind that if you're subscribed to Switch Online plus Expansion Pack, you'll get the upgrades for both titles at no additional cost. We should note, however, that the pricing here only applies to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Pricing for Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Mario Party Jamboree, and Metroid Prime 4 have yet to be confirmed. Given that Kirby and Jamboree specifically are adding in completely new content for their releases on Switch 2, we can't currently assume that the pricing will be in line with the two Zelda titles. Still, it's another piece of the puzzle we can firmly slot into place ahead of Switch 2's launch on June 5th. In addition to the upgrade packs for select titles, Nintendo has also confirmed several original Switch games will receive free updates to improve playability on the Switch 2. Alright, so this is kind of what I was talking about. I completely predicted this would be around $10 to $15 per upgrade pack. Now, I think these two games having the $10 route for the additional content makes perfect sense. They're not adding things in the game. They've added functionality and services around the game. You know, better frame rate, probably better resolution. I don't remember all the details off the top of my head. I know the frame rate is promised, HDR support. The Zelda Notes app is actually kind of cool. I'm actually looking forward to messing with that. That might be fun to run around and explore Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom again. But that didn't take a full dev team's effort, or as much effort as it would to add functionality like Kirby and the Forgotten Land or Super Mario Party Jamboree. So I can say like that the reason that these are included with the expansion pack is because they are on the lower end. I legitimately think the Metroid Prime Beyond upgrade will be about $10 as well, maybe 15. And the Kirby one and Mario Party one are going to be like $20 at most. I really would be surprised if they were more than 20 and a little disappointed. But there we go. At least we have something to gauge the upgrade pack pricing on based on, we can base it on features. Like this is what they thought it would cost per game. And that's cool. I'm glad, there's a way to upgrade without me having to go rebuy the physical game all over again. And I have my Switch Online membership. If you do too, if you have the expansion pack, you don't have to buy anything extra. Just keep paying that and retain your access to it. I may buy it anyway just to ensure that I own it. But I didn't do it with the Mario Kart 8 DLC, so maybe I won't do it here. I don't know. Anywho, let's move on. All right, it's official. Switch 2 Joy-Cons will not feature Hall effect sticks, but the controllers have been designed from the ground up. Another one on Nintendo Life from Ollie Reynolds. One of the biggest issues that's plagued the Nintendo Switch since its launch in 2017 is stick drift. In fact, Nintendo faced several lawsuits as a result of this issue, with an ex-repair supervisor previously stating that the workload to fix drifting Joy-Con was very stressful. Now, while we can acknowledge that Nintendo has undoubtedly been working hard behind the scenes to mitigate the issue for the upcoming Switch 2, we're nevertheless disheartened to confirm that the Joy-Con 2's joysticks will not be Hall effect, which is kind of a bummer and surprising. Like, why are the hardware makers so intent on not using Hall effect sticks right now? The lifespan is proven. There must be some major issue with maybe long-term storage or shipping or something that's going on behind the scenes. Maybe it's cost. I don't know. Like, cost at scale maybe is what the concern is. This comes via our interview with Nintendo of America's Nate Bildorf, who outright confirmed the exclusion. Notably, he didn't specify whether or not the Pro Controller would include Hall effect sticks, but the way in which he quickly deflects onto another topic probably implies that it won't. This is the excerpt from the interview. Let's jump off the sensitivity stuff and then talk about how the stick of the Switch 2 Joy-Con, because it feels so different to the original Switch's analog stick. So is it a Hall effect stick? Were you surprised? Were you inspired by the Hall effect stick? He responds, well, the Joy-Con 2's Controllers have been designed from the ground up. They're not Hall effect sticks, but they feel really good. Did you experience the Joy-Con and the Pro Controller? Both, they replied. And Nate responds, so I like both, but that Pro Controller, for some reason, the first time I grabbed it, I was like, this feels like a GameCube controller. I was the GameCube guy. Something about it felt so familiar. But the stick on that especially, I tried to spend a lot of time making sure it was quiet. I don't know if you tried really whacking the stick around, but it really is quiet. I'm thinking back to my Smash Brothers days where you just whack it. The Switch 2 Pro Controller is one of the quietest controllers I've ever played. Kind of pivots. Bildor's comments on the supposed quietness of the Pro Controller is also echoed in the Ask the Developer interview with producer Koichi Kawamoto, Senior Director Takahiro Dota, and General Manager Tetsuya Sasaki. When discussing the Pro Controller, Kawamoto said, in particular, the left and right analog sticks are quieter and don't make noise, even when they're moved quickly to the edge. Also, they glide very smoothly, so we've taken to call them smooth gliding sticks. Sasaki then confirmed that Nintendo had been running a long-term project to create the pinnacle of all controllers, but notably stopped short of saying whether he believed the company had achieved its goal with the Switch 2's Pro Controller. Of course, it'd be foolish to make any assumptions as to the durability of the Joy-Con 2 sticks at this stage, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens following the full launch of Switch 2 on June 5th. So, yeah, bummer it's not using Hall effect, but like I said, I think there's something going on when buying these things at scale, maybe availability, maybe reliability of components, margin of error. There's something keeping them from implementing these mass market and leaving it to the third-party accessory makers to deal with. I don't know, though. Interesting, though. It's not that surprising, but it kind of is, because you'd think Nintendo would have done everything in their power to make sure that stick drift is never brought up again. But here we are, kind of concerned right out the gate. How long are these Joy-Cons going to last? I don't know. Let's move on. All right, and from Nintendo Everything, I think this is our last couple of articles, but this one kind of rubs people the wrong way. The big news of the week so far. Nintendo understands that some consumers won't be able to afford the Switch 2. Let's read on together here. While discussion surrounding Switch 2's price continues, Nintendo of America President Doug Bowser understands that some consumers may not be able to afford the system. Bowser was speaking about the cost in a recent interview. For those interested in Nintendo's overall ecosystem, Bowser highlighted it will continue to have Switch 1 available. New games for that console will also continue to launch heading into 2026. Bowser told CBC, as we look at Switch 2, when you think about the feature sets that I talked about, we believe pricing is appropriate for the value of the machine and the gameplay experience overall. Recognize there are some people that may not be able to afford the Switch 2's price point. That's why I wanted to make sure the other Switch platforms available, so people still have an opportunity to come into our gaming universe, be a part of the characters in these worlds, and see value, if you will, in whatever rung of the platform they come in. The article's pretty short. There's plenty of talk surrounding Switch 2's costs, and some are fearing it could go higher than previously announced $450 price. A few days ago, it was announced that pre-orders are being delayed in the US as Nintendo evaluates the impact of tariffs. We also heard quite a bit from Nintendo about Switch 2's price yesterday. Bowser confirmed that previous tariffs were not factored in when deciding on $450. Meanwhile, outside of the console, there's been even more controversy surrounding game prices. Titles like Mario Kart World and the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, are going for $80 each. I mean, okay, so this is something we could talk about maybe in a separate video, but Tears of the Kingdom was a $70 game. This is a $70 game with a $10 add-on. Kind of makes sense to me. Nobody wants to pay $80 for games, but there we are. All right, so the whole thing about, hey, you can play Switch 1, it just evokes the Xbox One's launch with good old Don Matrick, which leads me to the next article here that I got pulled up. Some fans are drawing an unfavorable comparison between Switch 2 and Xbox One. Don Matrick's infamous quote resurfaces. This man will never live this quote down for as long as he lives. But if you guys remember, back when the Xbox One was launching, Don Matrick was in front marketing and doing the things. And people were talking about the always online requirement, and his response was, fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to stay connected. It's called Xbox 360, which is the console that was going out, and the Xbox One was coming in. And there was a lot of controversy. That launch, Microsoft is still paying for that whole situation to this day. Their position in the market, the everything that they have right now, good or bad, is a direct result. Their position right now is a direct result of these interviews and the way this launch was conducted. So you can't really, get mad at those of us that see the comparisons when somebody goes, hey, we have the Nintendo Switch 1 that you can buy if this is too expensive. Yeah, but for how long, And so, we can read the article real quick. But some fans, we already read the title, obviously. Alana Higgs over at Nintendo Life wrote this up. Nintendo Switch 2 pricing reveal hasn't exactly gone down well, and with the economic instability at the moment, many consumers are frustrated at the price and lack of communication. But as interviews with Nintendo of America reps were published yesterday, one of Doug Bowser's comments in particular stuck, and not in a good way. President of Nintendo of America spoke to CBC about the negative reaction to the price of the console. As Bowser has done in multiple interviews, he justified the price by listing off the new features available. Here, stating pricing is appropriate for the value of the machine and gameplay experience overall. And then he said, $450 may price out some consumers. And then he said what he said. We read in the last article about they can get Switch 1. To some people, this comment is reminiscent of something Don Matrick said prior to Xbox One's launch and the need for online connectivity. And we all know how that went. If you don't know what we're talking about, Matrick, who's president of interactive entertainment business at Microsoft in 2013, was interviewed by Game Trailers prior to Microsoft's E3 2013 showcase. And in response to online connectivity, he told Jeff Keighley, fortunately, we have a product people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360. Bowser's comments are really just trying to highlight that the original Switch will be supported after the Switch 2 is launched, but many have taken his words to mean something more dismissive. I mean, that's kind of how it feels. Isn't the first time people have drawn comparisons between the Switch 2 and Xbox One either. Just last week, the reveal of game key cards, our sister site Pure Xbox, dug up a number of tweets and social media responses comparing the new format and the camera to Xbox One's digital game sharing, online focus, and Kinect. It's not quite the same there, and it isn't here in our eyes. Not that Bowser's comments are completely clear-cut, of course. But we're also in a very different economy now than we were in 2013, where prices, inflation, and tariffs are affecting affordability. Ultimately, it just feels like there's too much uncertainty and too many questions over Switch 2's, well, everything. And I think that's kind of the big deal here. Every new bit of things we learn about the Switch 2 leads us to wonder what, we have more questions. We were wondering, how much is this thing going to cost in the long run? Games and hardware all included. Is every game going to be $80? They've said, and I didn't cover it here tonight, but they've said game pricing is on a per game basis. Not everything's going to be $80. That leads me to believe that most things can be $80 or $70, and fewer things will be $50 or $60. It just depends on the game, which, I mean, okay, fair. It's your business, run it how you want it. Just don't be surprised. I don't think shareholders should be surprised when overall game spending is down or sales numbers are lower, because we're buying fewer games every year. And that's, I think, where I'll leave the game news. I've got to get going anyway. But let me know what you guys think. Are you still cautious or optimistic about the Switch 2 launch? Are you looking forward to it? Are you waiting it out just to see what happens? If you're in North America, how are you feeling about the potential of a price increase thanks to tariffs? Or do you think it'll all blow over? Personally, I think it's too soon to tell. I think that the volatile situation with the tariffs and everything, it's still very fluid and moving around, and there's negotiating, there's a lot of moving pieces to consider. I wouldn't let it sway you one way or the other, but I will say it can't hurt to wait if you're unsure. We still have a couple months before the actual launch. Nintendo will probably give us a price pretty soon. I wouldn't say despair. Don't freak out. Yes, the game, some of the games are expensive. Plan accordingly. This is the best I can say. You don't have to buy every game at launch. Probably shouldn't buy every game at launch. You're not going to have time to play them anyway. Your backlog's full. It's time to clear that backlog. And that's where I'll leave it. You guys have a great night. Thanks for checking out the video. Thanks for watching live. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe, like button. Let me know what you think of these stories or any of my content down in the comments below. And I love you guys. Appreciate you. I'm going to go watch my kid's softball game now. See ya.